In Psalm 130, we're given a glimpse into the life of one of God's people who is broken by their sin. They're in despair. Do you see how that starts off in verse 1? Out of the depths I cry to you, Lord. Even as God's people, as Christians today, we still sin. And we can, in fact, sometimes perhaps more, should be broken by our sin. But what do we do in that time? How do we respond? Well, the first part of the answer is to turn to the Lord. That's what we see in verses 1 and 2. So often sin can cause us to run away from God in shame, or to feel like we've got to leave him and kind of sort ourselves out and then we can come back to him. But no, we see the starting point is to turn to him. He's the one we've wronged. He is the one we turn to. So the psalmist in verse 1 and 2 cries to him for mercy. That should be our step too. Secondly, we see that the psalmist remembers the Lord, remembers who he is. And he starts off perhaps surprisingly in verse 3 by saying, look, if you, Lord, kept a record of our sins, who could stand? God is the holy and just God, and before him, nobody can stand because of their sin. But do you see how he turns in verse 4 to the wonderful truth also of his forgiveness? But with you there is forgiveness, so that we can with reverence serve you. Remember who God is. Remember, actually, don't rush too quickly to the forgiveness. Remember that God is holy, that God is just, and that before him no one could stand, including myself. But we do remember that there is this forgiveness too. In verses 5 and 6, we find the psalmist waiting, putting his trust in God. It seems like the truth that he knows in verse 4 hasn't yet really been applied to his life, that he's not experiencing this relief from distress, the peace that comes from knowing sins forgiven. And so he commits himself to watch for the Lord, to look to God to work this peace in him. And then I love how it finishes, this psalm. The psalm starts with this personal cry of distress from the depths, but finishes with this public encouragement to others to come and enjoy what he knows himself. He encourages others to look to the Lord, to know this forgiveness, or as he puts it in verse 7, to know the Lord's unfailing love, to know that the redemption, the forgiveness of sins that God brings. I think this is a helpful reminder for us too. When confronted by our sin, when despair by them, what do? Well, we turn to him first and foremost. We remember who he is. He is holy, he is just, he is also forgiving. And then we wait for him to work that peace in us. But then don't let this be so internalized, but then turn and encourage others with these wonderful truths that with the Lord is unfailing love, and with him is full redemption.